All right, let's keep going. Let's go to the next one. We have Coulter here. We talked a little bit about this one, Coulter, in our meeting last week. A few things that stood out to me had to do mainly with some drawing proportion stuff. I think if we take down his hair, change the shape of it just a little bit, it's going to be closer to his. Now, you can exaggerate. You can make things bigger or play up little ideas. But sometimes, it gets a little, goes a little far. And so I think honing that down is going to make his head feel a little bit smaller and fit on his body a little bit more. Same thing down here with this leg. In terms of size, it needs to get a little bit bigger. Tilt it up a little bit. You know, something along these lines. Um, it seems like drawing is a continual struggle, at least a little bit for you. I think just taking the time to draw more and more frequently is going to be good. I mean, you're doing a fine job. I know the stress of painting from life can make it even harder. Um, but I think something that I would have you just focus on in your own studies or whatever is trying to figure out ways in which you can establish proportion quicker and more accurately. My favorite way is just treating everything as a simple shape until I get everything on there, and then I can begin to assess the proportion a little bit better or a little bit more accurately. Other things we're noticing, this hand felt a bit too large. I think the relationship of that hand. And maybe it can go a little bit smaller, but this is one that because it's hard. It's on the end of an arm, and so it starts to mess us up. Also, the shoulder feels a little bit different, but I think the pose has probably changed since the original. So, but that hand in relationship to that face, if he outstretched these fingers, you want it to be roughly the size of the face. And if I unfurled these fingers, they would be really large, a little too large. So that's what I'm using is the size of the face to help regulate that proportion. As we start looking at the rest of the figure, I think what we need here is a little bit of a darker accent in between. So this is casting a shadow, but there is an area where it will contact the skin. Now I know this one's probably further away than what was there, but even so, where the skin comes together, I'll get little bits of occlusion or contact shadow, just a little bit darker and a little bit of contact there is going to set that skin and attach that arm to that body. So put that little dark accent there. That's going to help, I think. Um, um, I think overall it feels pretty good. Some of the areas in light feel a little bit flat. Um, I might, I added this dark down here, but I would, try to help this thing start to feel round. And if I wanted to, I can play up the curvature of the shorts to show the roundness of the leg. And in this way, I'm describing for the viewer a bit more the roundness of the leg rather than just, sort of copying what I'm seeing. Down here, we can go even darker as this knee falls away out of the light. And then in terms of the form, we can put a bit of a, try to turn that leg into a rounder form. This can be helpful, and it can be really, really subtle. You don't have to go over the top, but I can show a greater degree of form just by putting in, a few more value shifts, a few more value planes. And we can go darker on the shorts and then round this leg as well. And again, I'm going to play up that curvature of the short so that it tells the viewer that this thing is round, and I might even put a little bit of a darker contact right underneath the shorts to give it a little bit of thickness and attachment. Now it went a little much on this back one, but that'll start to help those pants sit on the skin. It's like these shorts. What I'd probably do is send them more towards like a violet, really more violet, and a little bit warmer violet. In the light. If I go too yellow, it'll just get kind of muddy. If I keep it on the violet end, it feels like a cleaner color. That's helpful, at least I think. Feels like maybe this forearm's a little thick. There seemed to be to me like a little bit of a drawing issue of it feeling too short, but maybe it's too wide. And then I can put this shadow to separate this arm from that arm just a little bit. I can find an area where they combine and get lost, but then I want to be able to refine them at some point and restate them just a little bit. Looks like we can use a little more of a contact shadow where the skin and this skin kind of come together for that hand, something like that, just to set them together. And then in terms of this form, be careful going too hard edged on interior forms. There's lots of anatomy through here, and I try to keep it just softer than I think I'm seeing it. To me, it just is a little more revealing of the surface, or the material that the particular part is made out of. In this case, skin, so it's going to be softer, something along these lines. That looks pretty good. We might be able to get away with another little bit of a dark, again, a little bit more contact right underneath the base of the ear, right? That way that ear starts to join the head, and then we'll get that atmospheric or balanced light into that shadow. Other than that, I mean, it's great. It's a fun painting. I think it's an interesting idea to play with these lines. And just a little bit of drawing and maybe a little bit of edge stuff. It looks like we need one more, rib sits down in there. See abdominal shape. Anyway, there's just some thoughts for you. I think it's really great. Oh, it looks like one last thing I might do is push this arm back a little bit more so it separates. So I'm getting like a dark, and then it goes lighter as it wraps about. It just looked like a little flat, and I want it to feel like this arm is wrapping into the chest, and then I have the chest, and then I get the arm wrapping back out. So a little bit of value change can help to explain, I think, a little bit better what's happening in there. Something. Anyway, just a few thoughts. Let me know if you have any questions. Let's go on to the next one. Daniel, nice painting here, Daniel. I think it's your best one this semester. I think there is just a little bit of drawing. Oops, let me go back. A little bit of drawing stuff, I think. Oops. Going on here. I think the head is a little far from the shoulders, but I wonder if it can come down a little bit more. And then I can clean up this trapezius to the deltoid. And this neck has a little bit more of a gesture and then comes out a little bit further. It feels like the arm just feels a little long. to that shoulder on that side. And then in terms of color, you went neutral, pretty well everywhere. Neutral, which is good, but I feel like we have an opportunity to play up some color. For instance, down inside these shadows, we can push them even warmer. Now some of them do go much grayer, but I want not only to get a darker shadow to send these areas into the picture plane, but also giving it just a little bit more color as I look at the rest of these contacts where the knee touches this other leg. We can go darker still, and as it wraps up, we can smooth it out just a little bit here. Okay. It looks like we need a little bit more of a fall off in the light, a little bit of cleanup with some of these colors. So instead of going as gray, I might send it a little bit more saturated. And just try to treat it with, maybe a few less color shifts, at least here in the beginning. And this way I can control all the many differences happening through here. Too many little hard-edged shapes everywhere that I think by just darkening them up, and bringing them a little bit closer together is going to be helpful. I like the paint early approach, but often it leaves too much to question in terms of surface and information. So we want to just make sure we are not leaving the viewer wondering. We look in on this arm over here. We can go a little bit redder. As it wraps over it, we'll go darker, and you can, like you've done, make it go closer to the background color, but I want to be careful not to make it go, so then I don't want to make it go too gray, because then it won't really feel like skin as much. Same thing over here. Let me warm some of these up and see, warm it up. Maybe this elbow can come in. So I'm not doing a whole lot to it, but what I am doing is I'm resolving a few areas, meaning that I'm getting rid, combining shapes to make a larger, simpler statement. And for me, that's something I really like in a painting, where there's big groups and big things happening. And so I try to often resolve, unfinished areas, and if they're too distracting, or if they're located in the focal point, I try just to make sure that there's nothing feels too unfinished, maybe. Okay. I think the play up of some of these cools is really nice. I really like the feeling of the warm light, cool light scenario. I think This is one of your best ones, so it's really good. Looks like we just need a more refinement on this side. And then what I might do is try to play up even further the the effect of light. So pushing this even brighter and warmer and saturated as much as I can get away with down on the leg. Because this is a source of light, I'm just gonna play it up even more. You know, oops, I don't know what I did. Oh, so I pressed an indicator over there. Okay, so I'm getting that, pushing that light down in here. Something that can amplify that is if we get some darker, some really nice dark accents in and around that leg. Maybe I even play down the white cloth in value. I know it's really bright as well, but if I bring it down in value, maybe this will support at least a little bit more that leg. See that? So I'm getting that tremendous lighting effect working there. Anyway, I think what you have is really good. These are just a few thoughts to maybe take the painting a little bit further, to resolve some of the little areas, uh, to maybe bring it to a little bit more finish. I think it's awesome. Let me know if you have any questions. Let's go on to the next one. And this is Rose. It's a nice painting, Rose. We talked about a few of the ideas here. I think it's really strong. A few things that I noticed was that it felt a little monochromatic, and that the lighting effect is a little bit weaker than what I was maybe hoping for. I feel like there's a light being cast on her, and if I do, let's see, if I do, oops, I need to sample all layers. If I do this, let's do this right really quickly. But if I do this and I push some darker, maybe I should use a little more texture in it. But if I use, a darker value around the figure, this will give me a stronger read. Now, I'm not saying that this is the end-all be-all of this particular pose, but I feel like there's such a great statement happening here with that dramatic light. And then here, it's a little hard to tell which is most important in the painting. So pushing that down in value, I think, starts to make the light a little more important. And then, let me see here. And then if I take this light, and even if I push it to where it's lost its color and saturation, if I push it up, in terms of value, that's our key here. I can push a really bright rim on this opposite shoulder and really push the value in the hair, which I think you've done a great job of already. Push it up, push it up, maybe push the nose way up, cheek. The painting starts to become more about this lighting effect than any part on the figure, and I think that that's a really nice thing to kind of make the painting a little more about. If I push that value down, let's do something like this. Push it down, something like this. You can see how it becomes, wow, she's being lit, and it has a little more of a focus maybe. Some other ideas were to consolidate some of the darks. I know there's a ton of information in those eyes, and you can't. And often you feel like you can't get away from it and make it look believable or realistic. But I find that if I can just simplify the number of shapes, it starts to feel more lifelike. Often when I squint, these are more these are closer to the shapes I see when I squint, sort of as more of a simple shape. And as I do that, we're gaining a bit of reality, or I think, at least as I see it, a little more sense of, you know, it's simple, but it leaves something up to the imagination of the viewer, and often that's something I love to do. Simplify and let them bring something to the painting, something like this. Okay, as we look down inside of these dark recesses, they go into the picture plane or move away from us. So if I make them go darker, you can see how they start setting back into the picture. Now I know in life you're going to see a lot of these colors and a lot of these things, but you got to make sure you're squinting more, and this will really help for those parts to recede into the picture plane, and for these parts in light to start coming out of the picture plane. I can even push this. I want to be careful not to make this too light. It is further away from the light source, but I can play it up a little bit. Okay. Maybe I can even put, it's not believable, but maybe I can put a little bit of light on this knee too to tie in. Okay. And maybe what we can do is put some of this blue light, or I mean the light on this blue cloth on this side, like this. That'll help it feel a little more lit from above, and then I can push the value of this cloth down in value. Oops. Something like this. Something like this. And then I can even push all of this cloth down here even darker. Something like this. See that? Now we're getting a lighting effect. It's like turning lights on in the room. Starts to give us drama. Starts to give us a statement. Starts to understand what the purpose, a little bit clearer of what the purpose of the painting is, or the idea behind it. I can also soften some of these edges down on the calf. Edges down on this calf. Okay. Edges on this calf. Edges on this calf. They're rounded forms, and I don't need them to really be as hard edge. I can have some firm edges, but I don't necessarily need them to be so hard. Now I went a little crazy. I made them a little too dark. I'm gonna bring it back a little bit, but softening them up can be a nice thing, or a nice addition. Play up some of this light on these pants because it is being lit. A little bit here, and then send the rest, just a little bit darker. Contact shadow under the bum. Something like that. So we're taking the painting, we're playing up that lighting effect, we're making sure things recede into the picture plane, trying to keep things simpler, and there's just a few ideas for that painting. So think about how you want to finish it, and let's go on to the next one. And this is Rachel. This one's just unfinished. There are some nice value groups happening between the skin, pants, cloth, background. I like the overall read. I don't like the read out of the bottom here, though. Feels like this should go darker and group into the chair more, just so that these feet don't get completely lost. I feel like this is maybe a stronger read than this, to where the feet just kind of blend in and disappear. I feel like this might be a little bit stronger, an easier read. Um, yeah, it's just a process of, I would have you make the shadows darker. Um, Bring them down in value. This would be true for, I think, all the shadows. I think that's a tendency a little bit. You're moving quicker and you're seeing really well, but then I think as you start getting quicker, you start maybe forgetting the bigger groups that we started with in the semester, the light group, dark group, middle group kind of idea. And we want to make sure we keep them separate. This is going to be key to making these images read effectively. So make sure getting the color is good, but make sure first you understand for each shape what group does this thing go into, and keep it separate from the other groups. So I'm not going to say too much more other than that. There's just a few thoughts for you. It's just unfinished, so I feel like you can do better than this. So if you have questions or you want to resubmit it, let me know, and then I can give you more feedback. Other than that, I think that's the last one. So thanks, everyone, and I'll see you next week.